Welcome to the deep dive. You know, when you hear the name BISS, you immediately think of those little colorful stomp boxes, right? Indestructible ones.
Oh, absolutely. And for decades, if you said bias equalizer, you meant one thing.
The GE7, a row of sliders, a super simple way to, scoop your mids or add a little bit of high-end sparkle.
It was the definition of a workhorse. Simple, reliable, but it was a static analog tool. It was for coloring your sound, and that was about it.
And that is exactly why we're doing a deep dive into the BIS EQ200 today. Our sources describe this thing as a complete redefinition. It's the modern successor to the GE series and also that old programmable EQ20.
Right.
And our mission really is to show you why you shouldn't just see this as another tone shaper. It's more like a digital signal management hub.
Yeah.
We need to figure out how one single pedal can do surgical correction, creative sculpting, and even multi-instrument routing all at the same time.
And what's so fascinating is how the EQ200 it perfectly mirrors how complex modern rigs have become. Decades ago, EQ was mostly creative, a fun color.
Just a flavor.
Exactly. But today, with stereo setups, huge pedal chains, MIDI control, EQ is often this essential technical tool for managing the whole system. It has to balance, gain stages, kill noise, match different guitars.
Can do it all with instant recall.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And that's what this pedal was built for.
Okay, let's get into it then. Let's unpack the engine room, because this is not just some analog circuit with a few digital switches. This is a full-on digital processor. So what are the core specs that let it do all this system management stuff?
It really starts at the foundation. The EQ200 is built around a high-resolution digital architecture. We're talking 32-bit internal processing.
Okay.
When you're dealing with audio, more bits just means more detail, less noise. The design goal was, very explicitly, to get an ultra-low noise floor. Essentially, they wanted to make an EQ that's sonically invisible unless you wanted to shape the signal.
So I get the goal of transparency, but for a learner, someone who's maybe chasing that warmth or feel of analog gear, doesn't running everything through a digital box risk losing some of that? Is that 32-bit processing really transparent enough to avoid sounding, digital?
That is a crucial question. And the short answer is yes, it really is that transparent. In fact, its transparency is probably its greatest strength as a utility tool.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you use a lower fidelity digital processor to cut some harsh frequencies, you often end up introducing new artifacts, a little bit of digital grit.
Right. You solve one problem and create another.
Exactly. The high-res processing here ensures that when you make a surgical cut, the change is only to the frequency content, not the texture, not the phase of the signal. It gives you studio-grade clarity and headroom. But on your pedal board, you get to skip that whole traditional compromise of pedal noise.
And speaking of signal integrity, let's touch on the bypass. It's a buffered bypass, which for some players is kind of a controversial word. They want true bypass. Why does a digital pedal like this rely on a good buffer?
In a complex rig, a good buffer is. It's essential. True bypass is fine for a couple of pedals, sure, but once you have like 10, 15 feet of cable, lots of effects, the capacitance from all that cable starts to suck the high end right out of your signal, it gets dull.
Okay.
The BOSS buffer just maintains that signal integrity. So even when the EQ200 is off, your tone hits the amp sounding just as strong and bright as it should.
So high fidelity is baked in from the ground up. Now, let's talk about the real leap in power here, the power of choice. You've got these two independent channels, A and B, and on each one you get two totally different ways to approach EQ.
Absolutely. The old EQs, they locked you into one format, that 10-band graphic thing. The EQ200 gives you two selectable modes for each channel, which makes it, dramatically more versatile.
And we start with the one we all know, the graphic EQ mode.
Yeah, that's your classic workhorse mode.
Yeah.
You get 10 bands per channel centered on those familiar frequencies, and you can boost or cut by plus or minus 15 dB. It's fantastic for just being fast.
Right, quick and easy.
If you just need a general tone scoop for a heavy rhythm part or a broad mid-hum for a solo, graphic mode is intuitive. It works just like the old analog units, but with that digital precision.
But then there's the tool that takes this pedal from just being useful to being, indispensable.
Yeah.
And that's the parametric EQ mode. For the learner listening, why is parametric EQ the standard for surgical work in a studio?
Because parametric control gives you command over three separate things for every single adjustment you make. You still have your gain, how much you boost or cut, But you also get to pick the exact frequency you want to target.
Okay.
And most importantly, you get adjustable Q.
Right. So what exactly is Q and why is it so powerful?
Q stands for quality factor.
Yeah.
But it's easier to just think of it as bandwidth. It controls how wide or narrow your adjustment is.
So like a floodlight versus a spotlight.
A perfect analogy. A low Q is a floodlight. Your adjustment gently affects a very wide range of frequencies around your center point. It's great for a subtle, broad contour.
And a high Q.
A high Q is a laser pointer. You can create a surgical, hair-thin notch to just cut one specific problematic frequency like a feedback squeal without touching anything else around it. That kind of precision is it's impossible with a graphic EQ.
So you can tailor your tool for the job, and the interface has to reflect that, right? You've got these 10 physical sliders, but they have to do triple duty in parametric mode.
Exactly. The moment you switch to parametric, those sliders instantly change jobs. They become your controls for frequency selection, Q, and gain for each band. And that's where that little LCD screen becomes absolutely non-negotiable.
It gives you the visual feedback.
It has to. It shows you the actual curve you're making, your levels, your routing. You're not just guessing what those multifunction sliders are actually doing.
Okay, let's move on, because that engine room is only half the story. What really makes the EQ200 a system builder is how it handles signal flow. We've got two independent channels, A and B. So how do the routing options really take advantage of that?
The fact that they're independent means you can do way more than just run A into B. The pedal supports 5 main routing options that let you plug it into basically any complex setup you can imagine. It stops being just an effect you insert and becomes a central component.
So beyond just standard mono or stereo, let's hit the ones that solve those real-world problems. Let's start with dual mono.
Dual mono is a total game changer for anyone using multiple instruments. Picture it.
Yeah.
You can plug your electric guitar into input A, and then your acoustic or maybe a synth into input B.
Two completely separate paths.
Entirely separate. Each channel is dedicated to that instrument. It gets its own custom EQ curves, its own gain level, even its own EQ type. Maybe you want graphic for the electric and parametric for the acoustic, all in one box.
So you don't have to carry two separate EQ pedals.
You avoid it completely. Yeah.
That's a huge logistic problem solved right there. Okay, then we have series, which is A running into B. Why would anyone want to stack two 10-band EQs? Isn't one enough?
Stacking lets you do really layered, complex shaping. So for example, you could use channel A for a broad, foundational tone shape, like an always-on setting that just makes your guitar work with your amp.
Okay, your bass tone.
Your bass tone. Then you can use channel B after it in the chain for something specific. A mid-boost for solos, or maybe a high-pass filter to clean up low-end mud before you even hit your distortion pedals. It's a permanent foundation with an instant recallable change right on top of it.
And then there's the really creative one, the one that gets overlooked a lot, parallel routing. How does that work, and when would you even use it?
So parallel routing splits your signal. You can process part of it with the EQ and leave another part alone, then blend them back together. One really powerful use is to simulate parallel compression, but with EQ. For instance, you could use channel A to hit your mid-range with some extreme fuzz, just totally mangle it. But you use channel B to let the clean, untouched low-end pass through. You blend them, and you get this huge, defined bass foundation underneath a really wild process tone. It's an advanced studio trick right on your board.
With all this complexity, though, different routing, graphic versus parametric, you have two channels. You can't be fiddling with sliders between songs, so recallability becomes absolutely essential.
Oh, absolutely. The need for instant recall is what really pushes this thing out of the old analog world. You get 4 presets you can grab right from the pedal, but the real power is the 128 presets you can access via MIDI.
That's pro-level recall.
It's what a touring rig needs, for sure.
And when you save a preset, what exactly is it storing? It's way more than just the EQ curve, right?
It stores everything. The entire snapshot. That's the precise EQ curves for both channel A and B, the output levels for each channel, the specific routing you chose series, parallel, dual mono, and the EQ type, graphic or parametric, for each channel. It's a complete signal profile.
And that's where the MIDI implementation makes this thing part of a bigger system. If a learner has a loop switcher or a MIDI pedal board, how does the EQ200 fit in?
It fits in seamlessly. It supports program change messages, so an external controller can call up any of those 128 presets instantly. It supports control change messages for turning it on and off in real time.
So it's fully automated.
It can be. It can receive detailed commands from a central MIDI brain for really complex tone shifts, timed perfectly to song sections or instrument changes. It's designed to be a programmable limb of a big modern setup.
Okay, so we've done the tech, we've done the system integration. Now for the so what part, the practical stuff that makes this so indispensable. Let's dive into some specific uses, starting with the obvious one, electric guitar.
For guitarists, the surgical part is a lifesaver. Put it at the front of your amp, and you can perfectly match the output and tone of totally different guitars. If you switch from bright single coils to dark humbuckers.
A common problem.
A huge problem. One preset can fix that volume drop and the frequency imbalance instantly.
What about in the effects loop, especially for high gain sounds?
That's where the parametric mode really shines. A lot of modern high gain amps, they sound huge, but they can get a little muddy or fizzy.
Yeah.
You can use the parametric bands for precise filtering. You can use a high-pass filter to cut all that subsonic rumble that causes mud, or a low-pass filter to shave off the harsh, fizzy top end. It just tightens the whole sound without making it weak.
Okay, let's talk about acoustic players. This feels like where a major aha moment happens.
Yeah.
Every acoustic player knows that feeling of dread when they hear that one specific, harsh, honky note.
Exactly. Acoustic guitars have two huge enemies: feedback, and that nasty percussive sound from a piezo pickup, what people call quack.
And a graphic EQ can't really fix that.
It can't. It's too blunt. With the EQ200's parametric mode, you use that adjustable Q to create super precise notch filters. You find the one or two frequencies that are feeding back in the room, dial in a really high Q, that laser pointer, and just cut them out surgically. You don't dull the rest of your tone at all.
You're just silencing that one enemy frequency.
Precisely. And for the piezo quack, you find that harsh, brittle, mid-high frequency. Use a parametric cut and just remove it. The nightmare sound is gone, but you still have all the clarity and volume you need.
Bass players need that kind of precision, too.
Yeah.
How does it help them manage those critical low frequencies?
Oh, bass benefits so much from this. A lot of stages have mud spots, these vague, untuned low frequencies that just cloud the whole mix. The EQ200 lets you scoop that mud out without thinning the fundamental notes that give the bass its weight.
Right.
You can also dial in some gentle mid-high boosts to get more articulation for slap bass, or just to help it cut through in a boomy room.
We mentioned stereo rigs earlier. For ambient players or guys running two amps, how does that left-right shaping ability improve things?
Since you have two independent channels, A and B, and full stereo I/O, you can literally EQ the left and right signals differently. For example, you could EQ your delays on the left to be really bright and distinct, while your reverbs on the right are darker, more atmospheric.
Ah, so you create separation.
Create this incredible frequency-dependent separation. It makes the stereo field feel way wider and more complex than if you just treated both sides the same.
Okay, finally, studio and DIUs. Why bring a pedal into a professional studio?
Portability, fidelity, and consistency. Because it's so transparent and has so much headroom, it can honestly act as a pro-grade utility EQ. It's great for pre- or post-processing, especially reamping, where you want to sculpt the tone before it even hits an amp.
And you mentioned it could be a bus EQ for stems. Can you break that down for the learner?
Absolutely. In mixing, a bus is just a group of tracks, like all your drums or all your background vocals. Instead of EQing every single one, you send the whole group to one channel, a stem. Using the EQ200 as a bus EQ means you can use its precision to quickly shape the tone of that entire drum mix, for example, before it goes back into the final track. It's a clean, recallable hardware solution.
So wrapping this all up, what's the historical importance here? Where does this place the BAW-S EQ in its evolution?
I think the EQ200 really represents the completion of the Stompbox EQ evolution for Boss. It beautifully combines that user-friendly, familiar feel of the GE series with the deep programmability of the older EQ20.
And then adds a whole bunch more.
And then by adding full MIDI, parametric control, and all that advanced routing, it was just designed from the ground up for the demands of a modern professional touring musician. It proves that in today's rigs, EQ is a system management tool first.
It sounds incredibly powerful. But for the learner thinking of jumping from a simple analog EQ, what are the potential downsides or things to keep in mind?
There are really three things. First, it's a digital pedal, so it needs a stable, isolated power supply. You can't just run it off a cheap daisy chain or a dying battery and expect it to work well.
Okay.
Second, because those sliders are multifunction, there is a learning curve. It's not the what you see is what you get of an old analog pedal. You have to learn your way around the interface.
It demands a bit more study, like a piece of studio gear.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And finally, look, if you're a player who just needs a simple volume boost for a solo or a gentle, always-on tone sweetener, the EQ200 might just be overkill. A classic G7 is simpler and cheaper for that job. It's built for complex problems.
But if you need that surgical precision, that instant recall and system control for multiple instruments, it really does seem to be the standard today. It's not just an equalizer, it's a tone control system that really does compete with studio rack processors, just shrunk down into a pedal.
It really sets a new benchmark for utility and integration in a compact pedal.
So let's leave our listener with one last thought to chew on. We've seen how digital EQ has become this comprehensive tool for surgical signal management. It fixes rooms, it matches guitars, it cleans up entire signal chains. So given that extreme flexibility and the ability to instantly recall these complex profiles via MIDI, how might these tools fundamentally change the role of the amplifier itself in the future? I mean, if the EQ is now doing all the heavy lifting of tone shaping and correction, does the amplifier eventually just become a clean, flat power delivery system? Something to ponder on your next deep dive?